Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. We just hit 48.5k subscribers. Let's try to get to 50k by election day. Please like this video down below and subscribe to the channel before we get started. And today we're going to be talking about the Sun Belt. We're going to be analyzing the battleground map here. But we're only going to focus on the Sun Belt states. Obviously, got to fill out Maine's first district is safe red. There we go. So there's going to be 170 toss-up states. There's 270 to win. Actually, we will get to Texas, we will get to Georgia, we will get to North Carolina and Florida as well. I covered Nevada in an earlier video, so I'm just going to be focusing on these 5 states here: North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, and Arizona. So today there was a poll that came out, and there was a poll that came out from ABC Washington Post. This is the most garbage poll in history, in my opinion, in recent history. It has one of the biggest biases towards the Democrats you could ever think of. Nate Silver gives them an A+ on 538, so the leftists, the election mafia, they're just going to look at this and they're just going to say, haha, oh look, such a great poll. But that's not the case. It's not the case at all. Nate Silver literally works for ABC. For those of you who don't know, 538 is technically aligned with ABC. So why are we going to trust what Nate Silver says about what is basically his own poll and constantly underestimates Republicans and overestimates Democrats? Trump was down 10 points or more through most of 2016 in the ABC News Washington poll. So it is a very left-wing biased poll. And today, though, there were 2 polls that came out, both in Sun Belt states. Donald Trump is leading Florida by 4 percentage points according to this poll. He's at 50. He's at 51. Biden's at 47. In the state of Arizona, Donald Trump is at 49%. Biden is at 48%. Trump has a 1-point lead in Arizona. A lot of the polls this cycle have had Donald Trump down in Florida. They've had him down in Arizona. What exactly changed? Well, maybe it could be a lot of this is post-Ruth, and maybe there is some sort of increase in Republican enthusiasm post-Ruth. I mean, you look at what happened during the Kavanaugh things, even, in Texas here. People that cared about Cruz's Kavanaugh vote broke for Ted Cruz by 17. Those that didn't care broke for Beto O'Rourke by 11. And this was the case in many states. Missouri, you could do Missouri as well. You want to look at how important McCaskill's Kavanaugh vote was. Those that said it's an important factor broke significantly for Hawley. That's why Hawley won. Those said it was not a factor broke for McCaskill. So you can clearly see this here, that it was one of the reasons why Republicans did so well back in 2018 in the Senate. Even Martha McSally gained like 5 points to 7 points in the RCP aggregate during the Kavanaugh hearings. And even though she ended up losing at the end, it's possible she would have lost by a much wider margin if it wasn't for that. I don't know if that has much of an effect in this poll right here, but it is an important factor to look at. Florida, I'm not so sure that it really plays as much of a role. Florida's always going to be close no matter what. But if Donald Trump makes the decision to pick Barbara Lagoa to be the Supreme Court justice, that could help him given the fact that she's very popular. She was on the Florida Supreme Court, and she is a Cuban. And Donald Trump is doing much better in Miami-Dade according to a lot of the polling we've seen. So that's another good sign for Trump. Trump being up 4 in Florida. Trump being up 1 in Arizona. And I've done several videos on Arizona. I did a video on Florida once. What does Trump exactly need to do to win these states? We're going to talk about that, as well as Georgia and Texas, because these 2 are also important states as well. And they're just as important, along with North Carolina, because what this does in Texas, what this does in Georgia, is the fact that you have more conservative voters that are enthused to vote for Trump, especially because he's going to deliver a victory to the base by appointing a more conservative justice to the Supreme Court. Even if it's Amy Coney Barrett, this is going to help you out in Texas. It's going to help you out in Georgia. Florida, I think, is a wash either way. North Carolina, it helps you. Arizona, possibly as well. It helps you, especially nominating Amy Coney Barrett would even help you, especially with the Mormon voters in Arizona, many of which did not back Donald Trump in 2016. A lot of them voted for Ducey in 2018, but also Sinema. Donald Trump needs to earn their support back, especially if he wants to hold on to the state of Arizona, because he left a lot of voters on the table. And he did a similar thing in other states in the Midwest, but he got a lot more voters to the table in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan. Wisconsin and Minnesota, he left a lot on the table, but he's going after those voters as well this time. But again, that's a topic for a whole nother video. So we have 5 states here. And what does Donald Trump need to do to win them? That's what we're going to be going over here. And I'm going to start out of the state of Arizona. We're actually going to start on the West Coast. We're going to work our way east because half the polls have it a dead heat in Arizona. But there's also the other half of the polling we've seen. And those polls show Donald Trump down 10 points in Arizona, and that's just not going to happen. And one of the reasons why is because you look at Republican registrations in Maricopa County. And Republicans have been leading the new registrations, not net registrations. They're doing better in that too. But new registrations are huge because usually new registrations are people that are, new residents, maybe even new citizens or people that are turning 18. Those tend to skew vastly Democratic, and in Pima County they are. But the fact is Republicans are leading with new registrations 53 to 34% since the August quarterly. Could that change? Absolutely. But Republicans are doing a lot better with registrations overall than 2016, which kind of leads me to believe that enthusiasm is going to be more on the Republican side of things here at this election cycle. So it's very interesting when you look at that. And we can also give Arizona's 2016 results a look. Maricopa County was a county Donald Trump narrowly held on to. He held it by 40,000 votes. He left a lot on the table there. You saw a lot of third-party voters. The question is, will they come home to Donald Trump this time around? Because they definitely came home for Ducey. And you could even argue some of them came home for McSally, but you did have a lot of people break and split their tickets because Arizona is a ticket-splitting state. Mark Kelly will probably win the state of Arizona no matter what. However, I also expect Donald Trump to at least make it close, if not a narrow victory. But Donald Trump doesn't even need to win Maricopa County to win the state of Arizona. Pima County probably stays the same. McSally actually did a little bit better than Donald Trump in Pima in terms of the percentage-wise. I think she might have lost it by a slightly larger margin, but she did get a higher percentage of the vote there. She also did better in Yuma. Pinal County, however, she did worse. If she got Trump's numbers in Pinal, Yavapai, these are where you would see the Trump base. These are exurban areas. Even in Arizona, they did not see a big swing to the left. And John McCain was not as much of a factor as he was in Maricopa, where he vastly outperformed Donald Trump. And they know that that would be a big factor this time around, too. They're trying to hype up the story about the quotes that was verified false by 20 actual human beings, not anonymous sources. It's funny. I wish that back in high school I could just cite all my sources as anonymous and the liberal teachers would give me the same grade that they would believe these stories that make Blumph look bad, but that's beside the point. But Donald Trump needs to get his voter base home in Yuma, he needs to get him home in Pinal, he needs to get him home in Prescott, and do well enough in Maricopa. He can lose it by a couple percentage points. The polling's been all over the place. The poll that had him up by 1 had him losing Maricopa by 13. Which is leading to some people believe that it's not a good poll, and that's a fair assessment. But at the same time, they could have oversampled more Democrats from there. It wasn't a very good area sample from what we can see. That's fine. That's just the way it is. Sometimes polls have those glitches. But it really depends. If Donald Trump is doing better with Hispanic voters, as many polls do indicate, Yuma County, Pima County, these will look more favorable. Anything Trump loses in growth in Maricopa can easily be made up. I think Arizona could be a state Trump could win, but it's going to be, again, be in the tilt column. So for the sake of this video, we're going to put Arizona in the tilt column, just kind of showing how Trump's path to 270 is forming here. Texas is a big one. We talk about Texas. Donald Trump won Texas by 9 percentage points in 2016. And a lot of people are worried about Texas because of the polls we've seen, and it's understandable that a lot of the polling has Trump up by like 2%, but there's a lot of undecideds. And even though in 2016, 2018 polls did underestimate Democrats, I think Trump would do a little bit better than what the current polling is showing us right now. A lot of these polls consistently throughout the cycle, even before COVID, were coming up with wacky results out of Texas. And in fact, polls like Quinnipiac are getting better. They had Biden up by 2, Biden up by 3. Now they have Trump up by 1 or 2. So I think Donald Trump will get his voter base home in Texas. I think he will get the undecideds. I think Tarrant County is a big one to watch, the Dallas area. I think he should go there a couple times. But we know the internals are showing a different story than what the national polls are showing, because we know that if Biden had any shot in Texas, he would be spending there. He is not doing that. It would have been a much easier path forward. He wouldn't have to hold Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota if he could just get Texas. But he's going after all those 4 for some reason. Instead of Texas, he's done a little bit in Georgia. Georgia's going to be a little bit more competitive. We'll talk about Georgia. But I wouldn't expect Texas to be that competitive, especially because Trump's increased Hispanic support and the fact that the polls typically tend to underestimate the white share of the vote across the country. I think that Donald Trump will probably do a little bit better than what the polls are showing now in the state of Texas. I think he wins it by around 4, maybe 5 after what we see now happening with the Supreme Court thing, because there's a lot of conservatives there that are energized. You do have some liberal voters that may be energized by RBG in Austin, but a lot of the liberal voters there, their main base is Hispanics. And a lot of them are actually socially conservative on issues like abortion. They're not going to care so much about the Supreme Court. I'm going to put Texas as lean to likely, if not likely. We'll give it to Trump by 5.5 right now. I think it's going to be a shocker how much he actually ends up winning it by. Sometimes the polls have in the past underestimated Republicans in places like Arizona and Texas. I think they will continue to do that in places like Nevada. I don't think it's necessarily set in stone. I think Donald Trump has a lot of time to improve on his polling trajectory, as you know, what we will see in Arizona over the next coming weeks, because there's been a lot of conflicting polling. If half the polls have you up 7, and then half the polls have you down by 1 in the state of Texas, or in the case of Arizona, half the polls have it as a tie and half the polls have you down 10, and the metrics are showing it like tie to tilt R, you're probably going to err on the side of tie to tilt R. Or toss up to tilt-R, as you would say in the electoral terms. So for these two states, I will say that Donald Trump is in good shape. Florida is another one. That's why in my actual battleground map, I do have Florida and North Carolina as tilt-R. Again, a lot of conflicting polling out of Florida. And a lot of the same polls that had DeSantis down big, that had Scott down big, they're kind of showing it as a close race. Like St. Pete polls, they have it within the margin of error, more so than they did last time. In fact, there were 0 polls, I believe, since like October besides Trafalgar that had DeSantis with a lead, and he ended up winning. And I think that you're going to see a big shift towards Donald Trump in Miami-Dade. He got 33.8% of the vote there. I think that that is going to be bumped up to 36-37. I think that in Collier County, I think he will possibly get up to the mid-60s there. He has a lot of room for improvement in certain parts of the state. He might regress in Duval. He might regress in Pinellas. But if he gets his turnout up at least what it was in 2016 in the Panhandle, he may actually increase. Because if he gets the DeSantis margins downstate, but he gets his specific base to turn out in the Panhandle, which is what it seems like it will be, Donald Trump could win the state of Florida by 2 to 3. I'm going to still put it as tilt-R right now, but I think he has a big opportunity to win the state of Florida by around 3 or 4 even. That would be a very big stretch, but the potential for growth is there, even if he does regress a little bit in the Rust Belt, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. But that's it for Florida. North Carolina is an interesting one. I think Republicans and Trump will continue to regress around, some of maybe the Raleigh-Durham area. But I think that if they get the right numbers of turnout up in the rural areas, and a lot of the models that I've seen for this, a lot of the polling models that I've seen, people that I've talked to that have done this based on the absentee ballots, are saying a 3-point win for Trump in North Carolina. I agree it's going to be roughly within that range. The polling aggregates are tied, and polls typically underestimate Republicans in North Carolina. A lot of people forget that Tom Tillis did not lead really a single poll, except I think there was one poll. I think it was a Republican-aligned poll back in 2014. He ended up winning. Donald Trump outperformed the aggregate, but he was down by like 4 points at this time, or sometime in October, and he ended up winning the state by roughly 4 points or so. So I do think that North Carolina is going to be a state that Donald Trump will win. It's going to be called by around 11 o'clock, assuming they get all the ballots counted and everything like that in time, or at least a good amount of them counted. I think they'll be able to have a good track on that. I think Donald Trump will win North Carolina by around 2%, maybe 3% when it's all said and done. The last state on the list to analyze is Georgia. Now, it may be more accurate to pull up a map of 2018, but I will say that not a whole lot was changed. There were a couple of these counties that got bluer, and the rural areas, some of them actually got redder. And I think you might see enthusiasm for Trump in the rural areas. You're going to see it get redder. You have the trends in the suburban Atlanta. But I don't think the enthusiasm for Biden is going to be nearly as high as the enthusiasm is for Stacey Abrams. Unlike Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris is not that favorably viewed by even black Democrats compared to somebody like Stacey Abrams. Kamala Harris is not going to be the motivator of black turnout that a lot of Democrats really wanted her to be. So looking at Georgia, this is a state that Donald Trump probably ends up winning. A lot of the polling is showing it close. People do forget that the polling aggregate had Donald Trump down in a good chunk of 2016 in the state of Georgia. I really do think that he will pull it off at the end of the day. I don't think he's going to win it by 5. I think he's going to win it by around 3 points or so, but he will win it at the end of the day. He will take the state of Georgia, and it's going to be in the lean column. So that's my Sunbelt analysis, why Donald Trump will sweep the Sunbelt. As of right now, this could change. Donald Trump could lose Arizona. In fact, It's going to go down the wire. I'm just, for the sake of this video, I'm making a case for it, why Donald Trump could sweep the Sun Belt. Besides Nevada, which again, he could win Nevada. I just don't believe it's plausible at this point. I think Trump is better off to focus his energy on other places. So I look at this map, 259 to 218. If Donald Trump does sweep the Sun Belt, he has a much easier chance at winning. If he gets Nebraska second, he gets Wisconsin, he's done. If he gets Pennsylvania, it's over. It's done. So Donald Trump, the campaign's heading south. He's got to make sure that he's able to shore up his base in places like North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, even Texas, and Arizona. And he should probably make a stop at Omaha on the way back. And if he gets that base home, that's 260. He needs one out of these 4 states. One out of these 4. If he gets one out of those 4, then he's going to be reelected president of the United States of America. And there is nothing that the Democrats or the left or whoever can do about it. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media, become a member, donate to the Patreon or subscribe, star links in description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.